All right, y'all, welcome back to the TXRF podcast. This is officially episode 8, and we have a lot to talk about today. First, I wanted to address the MLB lockout and then talk a little bit about the Rangers' current offseason that they've had. We all know about the big deals, but go a little more in depth, kind of share some of my reactions, because in the video on my channel, I did not really react too much, just kind of said this is what happened, this is how it will affect the team. There is a link to that on the anchor page of this podcast, or if you want to check out my YouTube, you can go straight to the YouTube. It's just Texas Rangers Fanatics. But getting into the lockout, so for those who don't know, let's just start off with what is the lockout, because they keep throwing this word around, and I have gotten a fair amount of messages that are just saying, what does that even mean? Well, the lockout means that no players can be traded, no players can be signed, no teams and players can even meet. Teams cannot use players' name, image, likeness, any of that stuff, and basically just shuts down all MLB operations. So it sucks that it's had to happen, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Next thing is, how did this happen? Well, in 2016, actually even before that, let's just start at the top. So the reason that this even happened at all is because there's an agreement called the collective bargaining agreement between the owners and the Players Association. And the Players Association is just a collective group, a union rather, that represents every single MLB player, what they want, their salaries, all that. And I don't know the exact time length, but every 5 to 10 years or something, they have to re-agree on these terms, make sure like you're cool, I'm cool, all right, everyone's cool. The last one was in 2016, and they set it up to expire in 2021. And I didn't even remember this, but Jeff Passan did post or did mention his quote again from owners and players about how the agreement in 2016 was just to hold things over until now. And now it will get ugly. Like they said this in 2016 that it would be ugly in 2021. The meetings were not super productive. It was just enough to keep the sport going for a while. So what does that really mean then? Well, the main points of conflict right now are that the owners want expanded playoffs. I believe they want less salary for the players. They want like a salary cap kind of. I'll see what the exact phrasing was here. Let's see. Yeah, the owners want salaries to remain the same, harsher luxury tax penalties, and expanded playoffs. And the players want younger players getting paid more, a competitive league with less tanking, and a higher luxury tax threshold. So that is the main conflict at the moment. Of course, the full 6 seasons of first full 6 seasons, that's a mouthful right there, of a player, the team controls how much they get paid, and then they can finally be a free agent after that. As we all know as well, the league has not been super competitive here with some teams. Overall, but they don't want teams like Baltimore existing. They don't want teams like the Rangers existing, where they just lose 100 games, 90 plus games every year. And I think it's more to prevent tanking than just teams being bad, because there statistically has to be bad teams. Not every team's going to win 90 games, 80 games, be above 500 really is probably a good mark. So with that, that's where we stand right now. The expiration of the current agreement was last night at like 11 p.m. Central. And now we are in the lockout, which means nothing can happen until a deal is made. And one interesting thing was there were a couple players on Twitter. I know one of them was I think it was Jameson Tyone, who they all made their profile pictures blank because that's what MLB did. Yeah, it was Joe Musgrove, Jameson Taillon, and Trevor Williams, among others. But they were making their pictures blank because MLB did that on the MLB website. If you go check right now, and there's no pictures. So it's because they are not allowed to use their name, image, or likeness at the moment. So just legally speaking, like that's not even part of the agreement. That's just legally they cannot do that if they're not working. So it puts a lot of teams in an interesting position because the owners love money and they want to not lose money, I'm sure. So I don't know. I think the main conflict is the money here, though. The expanded playoffs, there's differing opinions on that, but I don't think that is what's really stopping this agreement from happening. I seriously do think it is the money for the younger players and the whole luxury tax thing. I did see another tweet as well. I don't remember who it was from, but they were basically calling out all owners, like showing that, look, the Rangers just spent almost $600 million in 2 days, committed the money. The Mets signed Max Scherzer for $43 million a year. Like, their point was no teams are low on money. They want to have the perceived image of this so that fans will, go to more games and say, "Oh, I'll make sure the team has money. We need to sign all these big free agents." Excuse me there. They want to make sure the teams have all these big free agents. So yeah, I'll go get season tickets. I'll go buy a jersey, whatever helps the team. But to be a full owner of a team, even two owners of a team, you have to be a billionaire. Like you probably can't be a millionaire and fully own a team, which is ridiculous to even say, but you know what I mean? Like you have to have so much money. And then that's just you personally. That's not even the team as a whole. I know there's been a lot of posts in the past about like the top valued sports franchises, and I think the Cowboys were number one at like $7 billion or something. So when they were going back and forth with Dak Prescott on his contract, I'm like, you're telling me y'all don't want to pay him whatever he wants when you have all this capital? And not to get too far off, I know there's more to the value. The value doesn't mean they actually have that much money, but Jerry Jones is a well-known billionaire. So they have money. My point in all that is this is got to be more on the owners than the players. I think to a small degree, because those are not the only issues, I'm sure. I'm sure that's just scratching the surface of what they're disagreeing on, but this is more on the owners than it will ever be on the players. And I was talking to someone about this morning, and the players are the product if you want to get literal about what MLB is quote unquote selling to people. The players are the product. So without making the players happy, you have no product, you have no money, and then you have no league. So I don't know why the owners, and once again, lots of things I don't know, but I don't know why the owners, generally speaking, are not being, accommodating to these players. Because not everyone's going to get $100 million, $200 million contract, right? So if they say, look, we want to not get screwed in the first 6 years of playing when we're playing to this higher standard. And, not everyone's going to be playing to that standard. But if you have someone like Ronald Acuna, Ozzy Albies, even Joey Gallo, he's still on his first 6-year deal. And that's when, of course, arbitration comes in and all that. But that whole process, they want to refine that so that players get paid more for what they're doing. And I think that's fair because back to the point I just said, without the players, you have no product. So you're not going to sell tickets. You're not going to sell jerseys. No one's going to go to games. And this was a problem teams have even without this agreement being an issue. For example, the Rangers. And I just keep bringing them up because it's obviously the thing I'm best versed on. But the Rangers, for years, they had nobody. They had a roster of just some guys playing baseball, and no one was going to games. And this was mainly, they've had, a handful of big stars. I talked about this in a previous episode of going through the top players in franchise history. So that's no secret. But culminating a whole team of players, at least a few that people know, will draw them to the games. That's why this Corey Seager signing was huge. Marcus Semien signing was huge because that will be an incentive for people to go to games. They're seeing, okay, you're trying to win now, so I will go to games. And same applies to the CBA deal. No players, why would I go to games? Why would we even have a league, right? Now, I know that was a lot of random things, random tangents, but what this comes down to is they need to get this done before spring training because that's when it will get ugly. They have till about mid to late January, realistically, because that's when players are getting ready to report to spring training. I think like pitchers and catchers are like second week of February or something. I mean, they go pretty early here. So they got about a month and a half at best to get this thing done. And it's just disappointing to see that it's essentially coming down to money. So when there's plenty of it to go around. And the last thing I will say about the lockout is that I cannot stand Rob Manfred. He's perhaps the worst commissioner in all of sports. Because you got Adam Silver in the NBA. He's doing a pretty solid job. You got Roger Goodell in the NFL, which he does a lot of awful things, but he is at least bringing in money to the league, right? Certainly no one's favorite commissioner, but he is benefiting the league and keeping it going in a strong way, right? They just expanded to 17 games and all that. And then I don't know the NHL commissioner, but I know a lot of people don't even watch hockey. But hockey does a fantastic job. If someone does something illegal or if they do something stupid, they get suspended. They take domestic issues very seriously. Domestic violence, whatever it may be, they take those very seriously in the NHL. I mean, the dude got suspended 20 games for faking a vaccine card. So 20 games just for that. And MLB in a 160 game season just gave Marcelo Zuna 20 games for child abuse and domestic violence. So that kind of stuff's ridiculous. And then you got Rob Manfred. So I got a little bit off topic once again there, but he's got to be one of the worst commissioners in all of sports. And the problem with this whole lockout was that it was unanimously voted on by the owners. All 30 owners were like, yeah, we want a lockout. Yeah, let's just not play baseball. Fourth lockout in MLB history and the 9th labor stoppage ever. And the last big one was 1994 to 1995 season. It's ridiculous. So that's my that's my big rant on the lockout, explaining what it is, what the implications are, and what should happen next. So hopefully that made a lot of sense, or any sense really. Of course, I can try to answer any questions in my Instagram DMs or Twitter DMs, but this is about all I know, and those are pretty clearly what my thoughts are on the situation. All right, now we can get into something a little more lighthearted, a little more positive. The Rangers offseason, right? We all know, like I mentioned at the beginning, Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, John Gray, and Cole Calhoun were the 4 signings they were able to make before the lockout. More recent reports have indicated that they're interested in another starter, specifically on the Reds, like Sonny Gray, Luis Castillo, etc. So that's good. And I can't remember what else. Oh, yes, Matt Olson, first baseman of Oakland. They're very interested in getting him. And if they did that, they would probably have the best infield in the AL, maybe in the whole league, right? You'd have Matt Olson at first, Marcus Semien at second, Corey Seager at short, and then Josh Young / Isaiah Kiner-Falefa at third. Now, the interesting thing is going to be managing the roster because I've talked to a lot of people about this. Obviously, if they get a first baseman, Nate Lowe is probably gone. Or Nathaniel Lowe, rather, excuse me. I know he wants to go by Nathaniel now. And at third base, Young is already slated to come up. So I don't know what the situation with Isaiah is going to be. IKF is a fantastic player. He's really great, but they have talked about trading him to the Yankees. And it makes sense to me. It's unfortunately not going to work out, in my opinion, if they keep him. Because he is a utility player already, but he's too good to platoon with somebody else. It might make sense to keep him if they don't want to have Josh Young on opening day per se. See how he does in spring training, all of that, but they should be calling him up this year, in my opinion, once again. So that would be the infield. And then the outfield right now is Garcia, Calhoun, and then just kind of depends on whoever ends up being brought up from center. I think there's a handful of options. I believe Tavares may be one of them if he gets his bat together a little bit. He showed some signs of it at the end of last year. They do still have DJ Peters, of course. He is in AAA. So there's a lot of different outfield options. I wanted them to try to get Nick Castellanos, but that's dreaming big, right? If they got Matt Olson and Nick Castellanos, they would have one of the most insane teams. They would seriously have a good lineup. But as we all know, it's not all about the lineup. They do need pitching. And they do have John Gray, who he's probably going to be like I guess in the current rotation at this very moment, he's probably going to be the number one starter. But there's also going to be Jack Leiter on the way up, going to be Cole Winn on the way up, going to be Cole Raggins on the way up. So that's 3 spots right there. And then Colby Allard will probably be the 5th spot / Taylor Hearn. There's a lot of ways they can go about it. And that's if they don't get another starter, Unfortunately, Marcus Stroman has been signed at the time of this podcast. But Clayton Kershaw is still out there. And I can say that definitively because they're in the lockout, so no one's getting signed now. Kershaw's still out there, I think, for the right price. He'd be a good number 1 guy. Then you go Kershaw, John Gray, Colby Allard, and then whoever comes out from the rest of it, because Jordan Lyles just signed with Baltimore, 1 year, $7 million. I didn't think he was going to come back. It wouldn't have been the worst thing if he came back because he was very durable. Folty is not going to come back. I'd be shocked. Maybe on like a minor league deal, give him another chance, but not at a major league level. And that was pretty much it for the rotation, I think, last year. It's honestly pretty fuzzy because it was just like, it felt like they were just picking a random guy every day almost to start. So solidifying the rotation and then getting a couple bullpen guys. Jonathan Hernandez and Jose Leclerc will be back this year. So that will help bolster the bullpen a lot. Hernandez is really good, and we all know Leclerc's been up and down, but when he gets it figured out, he is unhittable. So that is all good there. I do think Kenley Jansen's still out there. It might be a good guy to also bring along, maybe Kershaw and Jansen as like a mentor type deal, which they're big on those. So I know they'd be interested in it. But I also got to take a moment here to give huge props to Chris Young and Chris Woodward, because Chris Young has been killing it since the day they got him as technically what is the new GM. And then Woodward, his Dodgers connections probably were a little bit helpful in getting Corey Seager here. I can't speak for any of the other signings, but I'm sure they sat down with him and they're like, look, man, this is what we want to do. Like, Woodward's here. He's seen what we can do, yada, yada, right? And they still have also talked to Trevor Story, who I know is mainly a shortstop, but a lot of teams have been eyeing him as a third baseman. So that would be definitely one of the best infields in all of baseball if you had Story at third, Seager at short, Marcus Semien at second, and Olsen at first. It's like some MLB The Show stuff. That doesn't happen. And I wouldn't go as far as saying a super team until they actually start playing, but that'd be a heck of a lineup to get through. And I think that was the biggest weakness of the Rangers in maybe the last 5-6 years was after like the fourth or fifth spot, not much was happening. And a lot of teams have that problem. But teams that don't have that problem, like Houston, sans trash can though, but Houston, they had a solid 1-9, Correa, Altuve, Springer, Bregman. Like, there were no easy at-bats, and now they got Yordan Alvarez, Yuli Gurriel. That the 1-9 is there. Maybe a more favorable example is the 2015 Kansas City Royals, who won the whole thing, and their whole motto was keep the line moving, right? Keep the 1-9 just getting on base. Doesn't have to be home runs, doesn't have to be runs driven in. Just get on base somehow and keep the line moving. And maybe the next guy will bring you in, right? They had Eric Hosmer, Alex Gordon. Man, it's been a while. I'm trying to think of who all was on there. I think Ben Zobrist was on that team. And then they had a couple great outfielders. But you get my point is you want to keep that lineup moving. So a lineup like that would be good. And if they got a few solid rotation pieces, that would be good. And then bolster the bullpen a little more. That would set them up quite nicely for when these prospects come up, because I used to kind of think that way. It was, okay, we'll call this guy up, boom, problem solved. But it's not a realistic expectation to immediately call someone up and then be like, all right, you're the starting shortstop or whatever it may be. So we will see how it goes. But I do think even if they don't sign anyone else somehow, which I'm pretty certain they will sign more people or at least trade for someone, I do feel that they will be moving in the right direction here. So it was already shocking to see them make any big signings. And then they did it again. They get Corey Seager. I mean, that's the biggest signing of the offseason so far. I do think it's funny that how Carlos Correa has not been signed yet, though. From what I saw, he did want 6 years, $180 million, or that's what the Astros had given him, and he didn't accept it. It was either 5 or 6 years of $180 million. I can't remember though, but I don't think he's gonna get much more than $30 million a year. I mean, Seager got 32.5 or whatever the math on that is. And they're statistically about the same. I know Seager is a little more injury prone, but they're about the same age, about the same performance, about the same track record, right? Both World Series, questionable World Series, 60-game season and then cheating season. But regardless, we're welcoming Corey with open arms. And I don't know. I don't think he's getting more than that. I think the reason he didn't accept the Astros deal was because he wanted more years. That's probably like 8 to 10 years, like Seager got 10 years. So I don't think he's going to get more than 10 years. I mean, the biggest deal recently was 12 years, 200-something million for a guy who was like not even 21 yet. And then before that, Tatis got signed to like 14 years or something. So you can't really make deals much past 10 years once you get closer to age 30, right? So that was a whole bunch of nothing on that tangent, but I just wanted to talk about what they've done and what they might do next and the way that it's currently going, which it's going in the right direction. Looking forward to seeing the prospects, hopefully. young. Lighter would be a stretch for next season, but I do think because of the whole college thing, and he has been training right now in this offseason, that he might have a shot at it. I mean, everyone's definitely excited to see what he can do. So that's about all I have to say about the offseason, free agency, what the Rangers have done. So that is about all I had planned to talk about today, though. So hopefully y'all enjoyed. I do have a couple closing thoughts here. First, lockout is dumb. Hopefully they negotiate soon, get this thing done, get the free agency market back open. And I do believe that there should be a deadline now for signing, because we saw that people were expecting this lockout and started signing like crazy only a few weeks after the World Series ended. So I think that's good for the sport. Gives the athletes more time to settle into wherever they might have to move to. So if you get signed before spring training, you're like, all right, I just got to go to spring training. Worry about that stuff later. Second, Rangers have proven to the fans now that they are willing to spend, because we knew they had money. But now they are willing to spend and willing to actually try to win. So that's good. There's still a lot of free agents left, like Correa, like Kershaw, etc. And the Rangers could be looking at any of those guys, not Correa, but maybe Story, Kershaw, even Castellanos, trading for Olsen, anything like that. And lastly, Dodgers fans are mad salty that we got Seager. If you look at my channel, most of the comments on the videos in the last couple of days, especially the Corey Seager MLB Network appearance, pure saltiness. It's so funny. So, don't get mad at me. And now they're trash talking him, which is hilarious too. They're like, oh, he just wanted money. You're never going to win anything in Texas. Have fun. He sucks at defense. He's injured most of the time. These are literally comments I've gotten where people were saying he's bad defensively. He's injury prone, so good luck. I mean, they're coming up with any reason to just punch down to the fact that the Rangers signed him. I'm like, look, man, he won a ring with LA. Whether or not people consider it to be super valid is up for discussion, but it's in the books, no asterisk next to it, technically. So I just find that so funny. And it's just like, I have ads on these videos, right? So they're coming on to these videos complaining to me, but y'all giving me ad revenue. So complain all you want from the Dodgers, right? That's about it, though. Hopefully this doesn't last long. If this lasts like a month, I'll probably have more podcasts out just with any updates or something. But it really sucks because this was one of the best off seasons for the whole league, really, so far, and it has to get shut down by this arbitrary red tape governance, whatever stuff that they can't come to an agreement on. So appreciate y'all listening, though. Y'all know the drill. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And I don't know about buying baseball tickets yet because we're still on the lockout, but definitely go get yourself some tickets to like a Cowboys game or something with my SeaGeek code TX Rangers, $20 off your first purchase. And with all that being said, I will talk to y'all later.